Before we begin, I want you to take a deep breath. Imagine the world behind you fading away, replaced by the rhythmic, timeless pulse of the Atlantic. Tonight, we aren't just exploring the ocean, we are traveling back through centuries of salt, starlight, and secrets. From the ancient Polynesian navigators who read the stars like a map, to the silent golden age of the great tea clippers, every wave tells a story. Stay with me and let the history of the deep blue carry you into a dreamless, peaceful sleep. Close your eyes and let the weight of your body sink deeply into the mattress. Imagine for a moment that you are standing on a soft, silver-white shoreline at the very edge of the known world. The sun has long since dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky painted in shades of deep indigo, violet, and charcoal. The air is cool, carrying the faint, clean scent of salt and ancient minerals. Before you lies the ocean, vast, rhythmic, and timeless. To us, the ocean is a place of recreation or a blue marble seen from a satellite. But thousands of years ago, to the first civilizations, the shoreline was the ultimate mystery. It was the great unknown, a threshold between the reality of the land and the dreams of the gods. As you listen to my voice, imagine the perspective of an ancient traveler standing exactly where you are, staring out at that same horizon, wondering where the water ends and the heavens begin. In the earliest days of human history, the horizon was not just a line, it was a boundary of the soul. The Mesopotamians, living between the Tigris and Euphrates, looked toward the sea and imagined a primordial abyss called Abzu. They believed the world floated upon a vast, silent ocean of sweet water. To them, the rhythmic lapping of the waves wasn't just movement, it was the heartbeat of the earth itself. As you breathe in and out, try to match your breath to that ancient heartbeat. In and out, slow, steady, and deep. The ancient Greeks, too, stood on the rugged cliffs of the Mediterranean, looking out at the sparkling expanse. They called the great outer sea Okeanos. They didn't see it as a mere body of water, but as a massive circular river that girdled the entire flat disk of the earth. They believed that while the Mediterranean was a familiar home, the great ocean beyond the Pillars of Hercules was a realm of eternal mist and soft, rushing currents. Imagine the stillness of that world. No engines, no lights, no distractions, just the wind, the water, and the stars. For these early ancestors, the tides were one of the most beautiful and terrifying mysteries of nature. Imagine the confusion and awe of an ancient coastal dweller who noticed for the first time that the sea seemed to breathe. Every few hours, the water would retreat, exposing hidden tide pools, glistening shells, and damp sands. Then, as if pushed by an invisible hand, it would return, reclaiming the shore. They didn't have the complex maps or the gravitational equations we have today. Instead, they watched the moon. They noticed a strange, silent choreography between the silver orb in the sky and the rising waters at their feet. The Greek explorer Pytheas of Massalia, over 2,000 years ago, was one of the first to record that the tides were linked to the phases of the moon. He traveled far north, past the coast of Britain, witnessing tides much larger and more powerful than those in the calm Mediterranean. He described the sea as the lungs of the world, a place where the earth itself took slow, gargantuan breaths. As you lie there, think about that breathing of the earth. The high tide,
bringing with it the cool, nutrient-rich depths, the low tide pulling back into a quiet retreat. It is a cycle that has continued uninterrupted for 4 billion years. It is the most consistent rhythm in existence. Let that rhythm settle into your bones. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go. You are simply a part of this ancient cycle. In many ancient cultures, the shoreline was considered a liminal space, a place that is neither here nor there. It was a sanctuary. When the ancients felt overwhelmed by the politics of the city or the toil of the fields, they went to the shore. They understood instinctively what modern science has only recently proven, that the sound of the ocean, what we call white noise or pink noise, has a profound effect on the human brain. The frequency of the waves, crashing softly and then hissing as they recede, mimic the sounds we hear in the womb. It is the sound of absolute safety. For a Roman philosopher or an Egyptian scribe, the shoreline was a place of meditation. They would sit on the sun-warmed rocks and watch the foam dissolve into the sand, realizing that their worries were as temporary as the footprints they left in the tide. The science of the tides, which we now know is caused by the gravitational pull of the moon and the sun, was once a source of spiritual wonder. The tides are a reminder that even the most massive forces in the universe are connected. The moon, 250,000 miles away, reaches out with invisible fingers to pull the seas toward it. This cosmic dance creates a friction that actually slows the Earth's rotation ever so slightly, making our days just a tiny bit longer over millions of years. The ocean is literally giving us more time to rest.
Imagine the horizon once more. To the ancients, it was the circumference of the world. They believed that if you sailed far enough, you might find the place where the stars were forged. There is a peace in that kind of mystery. We live in a world of constant information, but the ocean remains a place that cannot be fully tamed or fully known. As you drift closer to sleep, visualize the tide coming in one last time. It washes over the sand, smoothing out all the ridges, clearing away the debris of the day. The water is cool, dark, and supportive. It carries the wisdom of the Phoenicians, the bravery of the Vikings, and the curiosity of the early Polynesians. All of history is written in the salt of the sea. The shoreline is quiet now. The birds have gone to their nests. The wind has softened to a whisper. The only sound left is the ancient rhythmic pulse of the Atlantic. It is a lullaby that has been sung since the beginning of time. You are safe. You are held by the gravity of the earth. You are drifting on the surface of a deep, peaceful history. The horizon is fading now, blending into the dark velvet of the night sky. The stars are reflecting on the surface of the water, making it look as though you are floating in a galaxy of liquid light. Let the mystery of the deep blue carry you under. Let the tides of sleep pull you into the silent, golden depths of rest. The ocean remembers everything, and tonight it is telling you that it is okay to let go. The world is wide, the sea is deep, and you are exactly where you need to be. Sleep now, as the ancient whispers of the shoreline fade into the silence of the dreams that wait below. As the shoreline of the ancient world fades from your mind, imagine yourself leaving the solid earth behind. You are no longer standing on the sand. You are being cradled by the gentle, rolling swells of the Pacific Ocean. The land has disappeared beneath the curve of the earth, and around you lies the blue continent, a vast sapphire expanse that covers 1/3 of our planet. This is the realm of the great Polynesian Voyagers, the finest navigators the world has ever known.
In this space, there are no clocks, no humming engines, and no artificial lights. There is only the soft slap-slap of water against the side of a double-hulled wooden canoe known as a wah. The air out here is different. It is incredibly pure, tasting of salt and the cool breath of the trade winds. As you lie in your bed, imagine your room is this vessel moving steadily and safely across the deep, dark water. For thousands of years, while European sailors stayed close to the coastlines, afraid to lose sight of land, the Polynesians were doing the impossible. They were crossing thousands of miles of open ocean in small vessels, finding tiny specks of islands like Hawaii, Tahiti, and Easter Island. They didn't have compasses, sextants, or maps made of paper. Instead, they carried the entire map of the ocean inside their minds. This is the art of wayfinding. To be a navigator in this ancient time was to be a silent observer of the universe. Imagine the navigator sitting at the stern of the canoe. He is silent, his body relaxed, moving in perfect harmony with the tilt of the boat. He isn't looking for land with his eyes. He is feeling the ocean. He listens to the rhythm of the swells, the long, deep pulses of water that have traveled thousands of miles from storms in the far north or south. He can feel the subtle change in the boat's vibration when a distant island, still hundreds of miles away, interrupts the flow of the current. As the sun sets and the sky turns from gold to a deep, velvety black, the true magic begins. In the middle of the Pacific, away from any city, the night sky is not dark. It is a brilliant, shimmering explosion of light. Thousands upon thousands of stars look down, so bright they cast a soft glow on the surface of the water. To the Polynesian voyagers, the sky was a star compass. They didn't see random points of light. They saw a grand architectural blueprint. They knew that certain stars always rise and set at specific points on the horizon. They watched Hokupa, the North Star, which stays fixed and steady, a golden anchor in the sky. They watched the Southern Cross as it tilted through the night, marking the path to the cooler waters of the south.
Imagine the peace of standing on that deck, looking up at the Milky Way. It looks like a river of silver mist flowing directly overhead. The navigator would use his hand held out against the horizon to measure the height of the stars. This silent geometry told him exactly where he was. The stars were his lanterns, his guides, and his oldest friends. As you watch these imaginary stars in your mind, let your eyes grow heavy. The same stars that guided them are watching over you tonight. But the stars were only part of the story. The ocean provides 1,000 tiny clues for those who know how to listen. The voyagers watched the flight of the Manu Oku, the white tern. They knew that this bird flies out to sea in the morning to fish and returns to land at night to rest. If they saw a bird with a fish in its beak flying toward the horizon at dusk, they knew that land and safety lay in that direction. They watched the clouds, too. A small, stationary puff of green on the underside of a cloud was the reflection of a hidden lagoon mirrored in the sky. The ocean was not an obstacle to them. It was a highway of information. Every ripple, every gust of wind, and every shift in the water's color was a word in a long, beautiful poem of navigation. Think about the silence of a night on the Pacific. The wind is a steady, warm hum through the sails. The water rushing past the hull sounds like a soft, continuous sigh. There is no urgency here. The voyagers knew that the ocean cannot be rushed. You must move at the pace of the world. They spent weeks on the water,
living in a state of constant, meditative presence. They ate what the sea provided, drank the rain, and slept under the open canopy of the heavens. This history teaches us about trust. The Polynesians trusted the stars, they trusted the birds, they trusted the very water that carried them. As you drift toward sleep, try to find that same trust. Let go of the need to navigate your own life for just a few hours. Trust the rhythm of your breath. Trust the stillness of the night. Imagine the canoe now gliding through a patch of bioluminescence. With every movement of the wooden hull, the water glows with a soft neon blue light. Millions of tiny organisms sparking like underwater fireflies. It is as if you are sailing through a mirror of the stars above. The world is glowing, peaceful, and infinite. The voyage is long, but it is not weary. It is a slow, rhythmic journey toward a new horizon. The navigator closes his eyes for a moment, knowing that even in the dark, even in his sleep, the stars are still there, the current is still moving, and the earth is still turning. You are that voyager now. Your bed is your vessel, and it is perfectly steady. The great Pacific is quiet, its waves reduced to a gentle rocking motion that soothes your tired mind. The stars are fixed in their places, bright and watchful. The winds are whispering stories of ancient journeys, of islands waiting to be found, and of the profound peace that comes when you finally let the elements carry you home. Close your eyes. Feel the coolness of the deep blue water beneath you. The stars are guiding you now, not to a distant shore, but to the quiet center of your own rest. The journey is over for today. The stars are dimming. The ocean is still. Sleep as the voyagers slept under the watchful eyes of the guiding stars. As you drift deeper into the sanctuary of sleep, let the image of the open stars soften. We are moving forward through time to an era where the horizon was conquered by the giants of the sea, the great 18th century tall ships. Imagine yourself now standing in a quiet, sun-drenched shipyard on the coast of New England or Old Europe. The air here is thick and sweet, filled with the scent of freshly sawn white oak, pine resin, and the earthy, smoky aroma of boiling tar. Building a ship in the 1700s was not merely an act of engineering, it was an act of translation. It was the process of turning a forest into a vessel that could dance with the gales of the Atlantic. Each ship began its life as hundreds of ancient trees. The shipwrights would walk through the woods looking for compass timber, trees that had grown with natural curves, shaped by the wind over decades. These curved branches would become the knees and the ribs of the ship, providing a strength that no straight beam could ever offer. Imagine the sound of the shipyard, the slow rhythmic thwack of the adze smoothing the wood, the rhythmic tap-tap of hammers, and the low murmur of craftsmen. As you lie in your bed, feel the solidity of that history. These ships were built to be wooden worlds, self-contained universes designed to protect their inhabitants from the immense weight of the ocean.
Once the great oak skeleton was raised, the hull was covered in thick planks, seasoned by the sun and salt. But a ship made of wood is never truly solid. It must be allowed to breathe. Between every plank, the sailors and shipwrights would drive oakum, hemp fibers soaked in pine tar, to create a seal that was both watertight and flexible. This is the secret to the ship's survival. If it were too rigid, the waves would shatter it. To survive the ocean, the ship must be able to bend. Now, Leave the dusty shipyard behind and imagine yourself deep inside the belly of that ship, far out at sea. You are lying in a heavy canvas hammock, slung between two sturdy beams of seasoned oak. The room is dim, lit only by the soft amber glow of a swaying lantern. This is where the true symphony of timber begins. A wooden ship at sea is never silent, but its noise is the most comforting sound in the world. It is a living, breathing entity. As the ship climbs over a long, rolling swell, the entire structure groans. It is a deep, low-frequency creak, the sound of thousands of wooden joints rubbing against one another. To a sailor, this sound was a lullaby. It meant the ship was working. It meant the timber was flexing against the pressure of the water, holding its own against the vastness of the deep. Listen to that sound in your mind. A slow, rhythmic creak and sigh, creak and sigh. It matches the movement of your hammock as it swings gently, governed by the laws of gravity, keeping you perfectly level while the world tilts around you. You are in a cocoon of wood, protected by 3 feet of solid oak from the cold, dark waters of the North Atlantic. Above you, on the deck, is the second half of the symphony, the canvas. High above the wooden hull, massive masts of North American pine reach toward the clouds, supporting a labyrinth of rigging, miles of hemp rope that hum in the wind like the strings of a giant harp. Imagine the sound of the great sails, huge sheets of heavy flax canvas, weathered by the sun until they are the color of old parchment. When the wind fills them, they don't just flap, they thrum. It is a deep, powerful vibration that you can feel in your chest. When the wind shifts, the canvas snaps with a sound like distant thunder, a reminder of the raw power being harnessed to move this massive wooden city across the globe. In the 18th century, life on the sea was governed by the watch. Every 4 hours, the bells would chime, a clear, metallic sound that cut through the roar of the wind. But down here, in the hold, the bells are just a faint musical echo. Your world is defined by the smells, the scent of the sea salt crusting on the decks, the faint aroma of the spices, cinnamon, cloves, and tea stowed in the cargo hold below you, and the constant reassuring smell of the Stockholm tar that keeps the ship whole. Think of the craftsmen who built this vessel. They knew every knot in the wood, every grain in the planking. They understood that they were building a home for men who would not see land for months. There is a profound sense of safety in such craftsmanship. You are resting inside a masterpiece of human touch and natural strength. The ship moves with a deliberate, slow pace. In the 1700s, there was no rushing. You moved as fast as the trade winds allowed. If the wind died, the ship would sit in a doldrum, rocking peacefully on a sea as smooth as glass. Imagine that stillness now. The sails hang limp and heavy. The creaking of the wood slows down to a soft, occasional murmur. The water laps against the hull with a sound like a gentle heartbeat. Slap, ripple, hiss. As you lie there, let your body become as heavy as the oak beams of the ship. Let your mind become as vast as the canvas sails. You are part of this symphony of timber and canvas. The world outside, the modern world of steel and glass, of screens and schedules, has vanished. You are back in a time when the only clock was the sun, and the only path was the wind. The ship is carrying you. You don't need to steer. You don't need to watch the horizon. The shipwrights have done their work. The sailors are at their posts. The wood is strong and the canvas is full. You are merely a passenger on a journey through time and tide. The rhythmic creaking of the ship is pulling you deeper into the darkness of the hold, a darkness that is warm, safe, and dry. The swaying of the hammock is becoming slower, more hypnotic. The sound of the wind in the rigging is fading into a distant, ghostly whistle. The oak, the pine, the hemp, and the flax,
They all whisper the same thing. You are safe. You are held. You can rest.
Feel the weight of the blankets over you, like the heavy canvas of the sails. Feel the mattress beneath you, as steady as the ship's keel. The ocean is vast, but you are tucked away in the heart of the symphony. Sleep to the sound of the creaking wood. Sleep as the great tall ship carries you into the silent mist of dreams. As the rhythmic creaking of the wooden ship fades into the background, imagine yourself standing on a high, grassy cliff overlooking the Atlantic. The air here is sharp and cool, filled with the fine, misty spray of the sea hitting the rocks far below. It is the middle of the night, and a thick silver fog has rolled in from the deep, swallowing the stars and the moon. But you are not in darkness. Behind you, a great tower rises into the mist, a lighthouse, a sentinel of the midnight, casting a long, steady beam of golden light across the obsidian water. Lighthouses have been the silent guardians of humanity for over 2,000 years. They are symbols of hope, of home, and of the unwavering human spirit. As you settle into your blankets, imagine that light sweeping slowly across your room, a slow golden arc, then a pause, and then it returns. It is a rhythm as dependable as the tides, a heartbeat in the dark. To understand the peace of the lighthouse, we must travel back to the ancient city of Alexandria in Egypt around 280 BC. There stood the Pharos, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Imagine a massive stone tower, 300 feet tall, topped with a giant furnace that burned wood and resin every night. This was the first true sentinel. Sailors said they could see its orange glow from 30 miles away, a second sun that guided them through the treacherous reefs of the Nile Delta. Think of that ancient fire, warm, crackling, and constant, burning against the velvet black of the Egyptian night. Over the centuries, the fire evolved. We moved from wood to coal, from coal to candles, and eventually to the golden glow of whale oil and kerosene. But the most beautiful evolution was the invention of the Fresnel lens in the early 1800s. Known as the invention that saved 1,000,000 ships, this lens is a masterpiece of glasswork. Imagine a giant beehive made of hundreds of hand-polished glass prisms, all angled perfectly to catch every stray spark of light and focus it into a single, piercing beam that can cut through the thickest storm. Picture the inside of a lighthouse lantern room. It is a quiet, glass-walled sanctuary high above the world. The only sound is the slow, metallic tick-tock of the clockwork mechanism that rotates the lens. In the 19th century, the lighthouse keeper would spend his nights here, a solitary figure in a world of wind and spray. There is a profound, romantic loneliness to the life of a keeper. Imagine the ritual of the evening, climbing the winding stone staircase, the sound of boots echoing against the cold granite walls. Round and round the spiral goes, a meditative climb that leaves the worries of the earth far below. Once at the top, the keeper would trim the wick and polish the glass until it sparkled like a diamond. There is safety in this routine. There is a sense of purpose in keeping the light alive while the rest of the world sleeps. In America, especially along the rugged coasts of New England, these sentinels became the icons of the shoreline. Imagine the Portland Head Light in Maine, or the lonely beacons of Cape Cod. These towers are built of heavy brick and stone, designed to withstand the fury of nor'easters, storms that send waves crashing 50 feet high against the lantern room. Yet inside the tower, it is silent. The walls are 3 feet thick. The wind may howl outside, but inside
The air is still and warm. Let yourself feel that same stillness now. Your home is your lighthouse. The walls are strong, the roof is secure, and the world outside cannot reach you. The wind may blow and the mist may settle, but you are tucked away in a place of absolute safety. Listen in your mind for the sound of the foghorn. In the thickest nights, when the light itself was blinded by the mist, the voice of the lighthouse would take over, a low, resonant, musical boom that vibrates through the very ground beneath your feet. Boom. It is a sound that carries for miles, a deep, comforting frequency that tells every ship, I am here, stay clear, you are safe. Let that low frequency resonate in your chest, slowing your heart rate, grounding you to the earth. The lighthouse keeper's life was dictated by the midnight watch. While the village in the distance slept, while the fires in the hearths turned to embers, the keeper stayed awake, watching the horizon. But his watch was not of anxiety, it was one of contemplation. He watched the way the moonlight reflected on the crests of the waves. He watched the summer lightning dance across the distant sea. He was the bridge between the land and the infinite.
Now imagine the light is beginning to dim, not because it is failing, but because the sun is beginning to think about rising. But we aren't there yet. We are in that perfect, quiet hour before dawn, the blue hour. The fog is starting to lift, revealing a sea that is as smooth and gray as polished pewter. The lighthouse beam is still rotating, but its glow is softer now, blending with the first faint light of the morning star. You don't need to stay awake for the watch anymore. The Sentinel is there. It has been there for centuries, and it will be there tomorrow. The light will continue its slow, rhythmic circle. The glass prisms will continue to glow. The stone walls will continue to stand. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, visualize yourself as the light itself. You are moving slowly, peacefully, in a circle. You are casting away the shadows. You are shining on the quiet water. Every worry you had today is just a patch of mist, and the light is moving through it, clearing the way for a deep, dreamless rest. The winding stairs are quiet. The clockwork has been wound. The Sentinel is standing tall against the midnight mist. You can let go now. You can descend from the tower and find your rest in the warm, dark rooms below. The ocean is calm. The ships are safe in the harbor. The light is watching over you. Sleep in the steady glow of the beacon. Sleep as the Sentinel keeps its silent watch over the deep. Now let your mind drift away from the tall cliffs and the sweeping beam of the lighthouse. Imagine yourself slowly, weightlessly descending beneath the surface of the water. As you go down, the sound of the wind dies away, replaced by a profound, velvety silence. The water is cool, but you are encased in a bubble of absolute warmth and safety. Here, the light of the sun fades into a soft, shimmering turquoise, then a deep indigo, until finally you reach the quietest place on earth, the seafloor. The bottom of the ocean is not a wasteland, it is a library. It is a vast, cold, and still museum where history doesn't just fade, it sleeps. We often think of the ocean as a force of destruction, but for the silent cities and ships that rest here, the ocean is a protector. In the deep, where the temperature stays just above freezing and the oxygen is scarce, time behaves differently. It slows down, it stretches, it waits. Imagine drifting over the ruins of Tonus Heracleion, an ancient Egyptian city that was once the jewel of the Nile.
For over 1,000 years it was lost, a legend whispered by historians, but seen by no one. Now it rests at the bottom of the Mediterranean. Visualize the sight. Massive stone statues of pharaohs, 5 times the size of a man, standing perfectly upright on the sandy floor. They are covered in a fine layer of silt, like a soft gray blanket. Their granite eyes stare out into the blue, watching the slow parade of fish. There is no noise here, no chariots, no markets, no shouting, just the rhythmic, slow swaying of seagrass in the current. The ocean has a way of tucking in these cities. Silt and sand act as a preservative, sealing out the air and the elements that cause decay. In this weightless world, you can see the grand staircases of temples and the remains of ancient harbor walls, looking exactly as they did when the city slipped beneath the waves. It is a peaceful, eternal afternoon. As you breathe in and out, imagine your thoughts are like that silt, settling slowly and softly, covering the events of your day until everything is smooth, quiet, and still. We move now to the Black Sea, a place of unique mystery. Deep in its waters, there is no oxygen. This means that the tiny organisms that usually break down wood cannot survive. In this anoxic zone, archaeologists have found shipwrecks that are over 2,000 years old, yet they look as though they were built yesterday. Imagine seeing a Greek trading vessel from the time of Alexander the Great. Its masts are still standing tall, reaching toward a surface it hasn't seen in 2 centuries. The coils of rope are still on the deck. The carvings on the prow are still sharp. It is a ghost ship, but it isn't haunting. It is resting. It is a time capsule held in the cold, dark embrace of the deep. There is a profound comfort in knowing that even in a world that changes so fast, there are places where time stands perfectly still. Then there is the treasure. When we think of sunken treasure, we think of gold coins and silver bars, the Spanish Main of legend. And yes, there are galleons resting in the Caribbean, their holds filled with the riches of empires. But the true treasure of the deep is the story each object tells.
Think of the Antikythera mechanism, found by sponge divers in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece. It was a complex system of bronze gears, an ancient computer used to track the stars and the cycles of the moon. It lay in the dark for 2,000 years, calcified and covered in coral, waiting to be found. The ocean didn't destroy its secrets, it kept them safe. It held on to that knowledge like a secret whispered into a pillow. As you lie in your bed, feel that same sense of preservation. Your memories, your experiences, your very being, they are all safe. You don't need to carry the weight of the world tonight. The ocean carries it for you. Water is heavy, but when you are in it, you feel weightless. Let that paradox settle over you. Feel the pressure of your blankets as a comforting, grounding force, like the deep sea pressure that keeps everything in its place. In the silent cities, there is no light except for the occasional spark of bioluminescence, a passing jellyfish or a glowing coral. It is a world of shadows and soft edges. There are no sharp corners here. Everything has been smoothed by the water, rounded by the centuries. The iron of sunken ships has been transformed into rusticles, delicate orange formations that look like frozen drips of wax. Nature has claimed these man-made things and turned them into reefs, into homes for the silent creatures of the abyss. Archaeology in the deep is a slow, methodical process. Divers move with extreme care, using tiny brushes to clear away the sand. It is a meditation in slow motion. Imagine that same care being applied to your mind right now. We are brushing away the sand of today's worries, revealing the calm, solid history beneath. The ocean floor is the ultimate sanctuary. It is the end of the journey for every grain of sand, every leaf that falls into a river, and every ship that leaves the harbor. It is where everything eventually comes to rest. There is a great global peace in the idea that the earth has this silent blue basement where history is preserved in a dreamless sleep. Visualize the Titanic resting 2 miles down in the North Atlantic. It is no longer a tragedy, it is a monument of rust and silk. The chandeliers still hang in the grand rooms, and the floor tiles remain in their patterns. It is silent, it is dark, it is finished. You are now in your own silent city. The lights are out. The world above, the world of sun and noise and wind, is far, far away. You are in the indigo depths of your own relaxation. The silt of sleep is settling over you, warm and gray and soft. The currents of your breath are slow and rhythmic. There is nothing left to find. The treasures are all accounted for. The history is safe. The cities are quiet. Sleep in the weightless blue. Sleep as the ocean holds you in its ancient, still embrace. The deep is waiting, and it is full of peace. As you leave the silent, sunless cities of the deep sea floor, imagine yourself rising slowly, like a bubble, through the cool layers of the Atlantic. You are moving upward into a place where the water begins to hum with a different kind of energy. You are entering the Gulf Stream, one of the most powerful, mysterious, and vital forces on our planet. Imagine a river, but this is no ordinary river of mud and silt. This is a river of deep electric indigo, moving through the lighter turquoise of the surrounding ocean. It has no banks of earth, no shores of stone. Its walls are made of water itself, a boundary of temperature and salt that keeps this massive ocean river on its steady, eternal path. As you lie in the comfort of your bed, imagine you are being cradled by this current. You don't need to swim. You don't need to move a muscle. The Gulf Stream is a conveyor belt of warmth, and it is carrying you northward with a slow, irresistible grace. It is the Earth's own circulatory system, a pulse that has been beating since long before the first ships ever touched the waves. The history of our understanding of this river is a story of observation and wonder. For centuries, sailors noticed something strange. Ships traveling from the Americas to Europe seemed to fly across the water, arriving days earlier than expected. But on the return journey, they struggled, as if they were rowing against an invisible giant. It wasn't until the late 1700s that the great American polymath Benjamin Franklin decided to solve the mystery. While serving as the Postmaster General, he wondered why the mail ships from England were so much slower than the merchant ships from Rhode Island. He consulted with his cousin, Timothy Folger, a Nantucket whaling captain. Folger told him a secret known only to the hunters of the deep. There was a strong current in the ocean that whales loved to follow.
Imagine Franklin and Folger sitting in a dimly lit room, poring over old charts by candlelight. Folger explained that American whalers knew how to avoid this current on the way out and how to hitch a ride on it on the way back. Franklin was the first to map it, naming it the Gulf Stream. He realized that the ocean was not a stagnant bowl of water, but a living, moving engine of heat. As you breathe in, imagine the warmth of that water. The Gulf Stream starts in the tropical heat of the Gulf of Mexico, where the sun beats down on the Caribbean, saturating the water with warmth.
This liquid gold then surges out through the Florida Straits, carrying more water than all the rivers of the world combined. It moves at about 4 miles per hour, a walking pace, a rhythmic and steady stride that never tires. Think of the global conveyor belt, the scientific term for this movement. It is a journey that takes a single drop of water nearly 1,000 years to complete. A drop of water cools in the North Atlantic, sinks to the bottom, travels all the way to the Antarctic, loops through the Indian and Pacific Oceans, and eventually finds its way back to the warmth of the Gulf. This is the heartbeat of the world. It is the way the Earth regulates its temperature, bringing the warmth of the equator to the chilly shores of Europe and North America. Without this pulse, our world would be a very different, much colder place. Visualize the transition as the current moves north. Near the coast of North Carolina, at a place called Cape Hatteras, the warm blue waters of the Gulf Stream collide with the cold green waters of the Labrador Current from the north. This is where the graveyard of the Atlantic lies, a place of mist and storms. But beneath the surface, it is a spectacular mixing of worlds. The warmth meets the cold in a swirling, beautiful dance of eddies and spirals. There is something deeply comforting about the scale of this movement. Our human lives are measured in minutes and hours, in days and weeks, but the Gulf Stream operates on a scale of centuries. It doesn't care about the news, the noise, or the busyness of the world above. It simply flows. It is a constant in an inconstant world. Imagine the marine life that travels with you in this current. Giant bluefin tuna, sea turtles, and tiny shimmering plankton, all of them using this highway to travel across the globe. The turtles don't fight the current. They tuck their flippers in and let the water do the work. They are at peace with the flow. Can you find that same peace? Can you let the current of your own breath carry you toward sleep? You are not fighting the tides of the night. You are not rowing against the wind. You are simply letting the natural rhythmic pulse of the earth move you toward the morning. The Gulf Stream is silent. It doesn't roar like a waterfall. It glides. It is a massive, heavy, liquid weight that moves with the silence of a ghost. In the middle of the night, when the moon is high, the current looks like a ribbon of dark silk stretched across the sea. The water is so clear that you can see deep into the indigo heart of it, where the heat is stored like a battery. As the current reaches the North Atlantic, it begins to release its heat into the air. This is what gives the British Isles their soft rains and the French coast its mild winters. The ocean is literally breathing its warmth into the sky. It is a long, slow exhale that lasts for months. Feel your own exhale now, long, slow, and warm. With every breath, you are releasing the tension of the day, just as the Gulf Stream releases its heat into the cool northern air. You are now entering the northernmost part of the journey. The water is beginning to cool. It is becoming denser, heavier. Slowly, very slowly, it begins to sink, starting its long journey back down to the quiet, silent cities we visited before. It is a perfect, never-ending circle. The pulse is steady. The heartbeat is strong. The river within the sea is carrying you into the mist. There is no need for a map. There is no need for a compass. The current knows the way. The water is turning from indigo to a deep, dark violet. The stars are reflecting on the surface, bobbing gently in the wake of the stream. The world is soft, the water is warm, and the journey is effortless. Sleep as the Gulf Stream flows. Sleep as the earth's heartbeat lulls you into the deep blue of your dreams. You are part of the pulse. You are home in the flow. As you drift within the warm, moving embrace of the Gulf Stream, the water around you begins to change. The electric indigo softens into a deep, meditative sapphire. You are moving into the open pasture of the sea, the realm of the great whales. Here the scale of life expands. You are no longer measuring the world in footsteps or miles, but in the slow, sweeping grace of creatures as large as the tall ships we once sailed.
Imagine a shadow beneath you, a shadow so vast it looks like a submerged island. But this island is alive. It is a blue whale, the largest being to ever exist on our planet. As you lie in the stillness of your room, let your body feel as heavy and as supported as that whale. In the water, weight does not exist. 100 tons of bone and muscle feel as light as a feather, suspended in the buoyant, salty liquid. This is the ultimate relaxation, to be immense yet weightless. The history of our relationship with these Leviathans has undergone a beautiful, quiet transformation. For centuries, humans viewed whales with a mixture of fear and industry. They were the monsters on the edges of maps, the source of oil that lit the lamps of London and New York. But then, in the middle of the 20th century, something changed. We stopped hunting their bodies and started listening to their voices. In 1967, a bioacoustician named Roger Payne went out into the waters off Bermuda. He lowered a waterproof microphone, a hydrophone, into the deep, expecting to hear only the rush of the current. Instead, he heard a symphony. He heard the long, haunting, complex compositions of the humpback whale. When these recordings were released to the public, they changed the world forever. For the first time, we realized that we were not alone in having a culture, a language, and a soul. We realized that while we were building cities of stone, the whales were building cities of sound. As you breathe in and out, imagine those sounds now. They are not like the songs of birds or the calls of land animals. A whale's song is a physical presence. Because sound travels 4 times faster in water than in air, and travels much further, the song of a whale is a vibration that can be felt in the very marrow of your bones. Imagine a low-frequency moan, a sound so deep it is more of a feeling than a noise. This sound enters the SOFAR channel, the sound fixing and ranging channel, a layer of the ocean that acts like a natural fiber optic cable for sound. In this special layer, the pressure and temperature of the water create an acoustic mirror. A blue whale can sing a note in the North Atlantic, and that note can travel undisturbed and clear for thousands of miles, reaching a listener in the Antarctic weeks later. Think of the patience in that communication. The whales are never in a rush. They sing a phrase, and then they wait. They listen for the echo, for the reply from a friend half a world away. Their sense of time is vast. A single song can last for 30 minutes, and a whale might repeat that song note for note for 24 hours straight. It is a meditation in the form of music. In the 1970s, whale watching became a new kind of pilgrimage, especially along the coasts of Massachusetts and California. People would sit in silence on the decks of boats, waiting for a blow, that sudden misty exhale that sounds like a giant sigh. When a whale breaches, throwing its massive body into the air and crashing back down, it is a celebration of gravity and power. But the most magical moments are the log-like moments, when a whale simply floats at the surface, half asleep, its blowhole gently opening and closing in a rhythm that matches the swells. Imagine yourself floating like that now. You are a peaceful giant in a peaceful ocean. The sun is warming your back, while your belly is cooled by the deep blue. You are logging, drifting without effort, completely safe in the middle of the vast expanse.
The songs of the humpbacks change each year. All the whales in a particular ocean, say the North Pacific, will sing the same song, but as the months pass, the song evolves. A note is added here, a whistle is lengthened there. By the end of the year, they are all singing a new arrangement. It is a living, breathing history of music passed down through the water, through the generations. Scientists believe these songs may be maps. Perhaps they're singing about the mountains of the seafloor or the location of the great krill clouds. Or perhaps they are simply singing because it feels good to vibrate with the ocean. To listen to a whale is to listen to the earth itself. Visualize a mother humpback and her calf. The calf is the size of a small boat, yet it stays tucked closely under the mother's massive flipper. They communicate in soft whispers, low-frequency grunts and chirps that stay within a few meters of them so as not to attract the attention of predators. It is a private, underwater lullaby. The mother's heart beats only a few times a minute, a slow, powerful thump, thump, thump. There is no hurry. The ocean is 5 miles deep, and the night is 12 hours long. You have all the time in the world. As the whales dive, they enter a world of total darkness. But they do not need eyes. They use echolocation, sending out clicks that bounce off the world around them, creating a three-dimensional map made of sound. They can see the shape of a canyon, the curve of a ship's hull, or the movement of a school of fish, all through the echoes of their own voices. They are masters of the unseen. Tonight, you don't need your eyes either. The world of sight is the world of the day. The world of sleep is the world of sound and feeling. Listen to the imaginary lullaby of the Leviathan in your mind. It is a sound like a cello being played in a great cathedral, resonant, mournful, and incredibly beautiful. It is a sound that says the ocean is wide, but you are not lost. It says the water is deep, but you are held. The whales have been here for 50 million years. They have seen the continents shift. They have seen the ice ages come and go. They are the keepers of the ocean's memory. When you fall asleep to the facts of the ocean, you are tapping into that ancient memory. You are joining the long, slow parade of life that moves through the blue. The great blue whale beneath you begins a slow, majestic descent. It isn't swimming away. It is simply returning to the quiet of the abyss. The light from the surface begins to fade, turning from sapphire to a dusty charcoal. The songs are becoming fainter, turning into a low, rhythmic hum that vibrates through your mattress, through your pillow, and into your dreams. The Leviathans are sleeping now. They shut down half of their brain at a time, keeping one eye open to the stars and one half of the mind aware of the surface. But you can shut down both halves. You can let the water take all of your weight. The lullaby is ending. The last note is a long, low whistle that stretches out into the darkness, traveling 1,000 miles before it finally disappears. The ocean is a silent, velvet hall. The giants are at rest. Sleep to the vibration of the deep. Sleep as the lullaby of the Leviathan carries you down into the soft, warm currents of a dreamless night. You are safe. You are light. You are part of the song. As the low, resonant songs of the whales fade into the deep, imagine yourself transported to a very different kind of sanctuary. You are no longer in the water, but in a quiet, dimly lit room from centuries past. The air is still and carries the comforting scent of beeswax candles, old parchment, and the earthy, metallic aroma of iron-gal ink. Before you lies a heavy wooden table, and spread across it is a massive, hand-drawn map of the world, the mappa mundi, of a time when the edges of the earth were still a beautiful, terrifying mystery. In the 16th and 17th centuries, making a map was an act of both science and storytelling. Cartographers were not just recorders of coastlines, they were architects of the imagination. As you lie in the soft darkness of your room, visualize the texture of that map. It isn't made of modern paper, but of thick, creamy vellum, calf skin that has been stretched and dried until it is smooth as silk. Feel the weight of that history. The map represents everything humanity knew at the time, but more importantly, it represents everything they didn't. In those days, the centers of the oceans were vast, empty spaces. To the ancient mapmaker, an empty space on a map was a horror vacui, a fear of the void. They couldn't leave the blue expanse blank. And so, where the charts ran out of soundings and the sailors ran out of stories, the artists began to draw. At the very edges of the known world, where the Atlantic becomes a gray mist, you see the famous inscription in elegant looping calligraphy, Hic sunt dragones, here be dragons. As you breathe in the quiet of the night, think about those dragons. To the ancient mind, the ocean was so vast and so deep that anything was possible. The monsters they drew weren't just products of fear, they were a way of honoring the sheer scale of the sea. They drew the Cetus, a massive, scaly whale with the head of a wolf and a fountain of water erupting from its brow. They drew the sea serpent, a creature of impossible length, coiling in emerald loops through the waves of the North Sea, large enough to encircle a ship and pull it down into the silent dark.
One of the most famous of these maps was the Carta Marina, created by Olaus Magnus in 1539. Imagine looking closely at this map by the flickering light of a candle. It is a masterpiece of detail. In the waters off the coast of Norway, Olaus drew a sea orm, a serpent 200 feet long with glowing red eyes. But as you look at these drawings, they don't feel threatening. In the soft light of the present, they feel like the illustrations of a grand cosmic fairy tale. They are the symbols of a world that still had secrets to keep. There is a profound peace in the unknown. Today, we have satellites that can see every square inch of the ocean's surface. We have sonar that can map the deepest trenches. But the ancient cartographers understood something we often forget, that mystery is a form of rest for the mind. When we don't know everything, we are free to dream. Consider the myth of the Aspida coloni, the island whale. Ancient sailors told stories of a creature so gargantuan and so still that its back became covered in sand, bushes, and even small trees. Unsuspecting sailors would land their ships, thinking they had found a new island, and build a fire to cook their meal. Only when the island felt the heat of the fire would it slowly, gently submerge, carrying the travelers back into the cool blue depths. Imagine that island now. Imagine yourself lying on a bed of soft moss on the back of this ancient, peaceful giant. The island isn't moving fast, it is merely drifting with the currents. The trees are swaying in a warm breeze, and the water is lapping softly against the shore. You are perfectly safe because the giant beneath you is in a state of eternal sleep. It is a living sanctuary, a bridge between the land and the deep. As navigation improved, the monsters on the maps began to change. They didn't disappear, they simply became more real. The kraken, once described as a beast that could swallow an entire fleet, was eventually revealed to be the giant squid, a creature just as magnificent and mysterious, but one made of flesh and blood rather than myth. The monsters were simply nature's way of saying, respect the depth, acknowledge the power of what you cannot see. Think of the cartographer's tools.
the scratching of a goose quill pen against the vellum, scritch, scritch, scritch. The sound is rhythmic and tiny in the vast silence of the library. He dips the pen into a small pot of indigo ink, drawing a delicate wave, then another, then another. Thousands of tiny hand-drawn waves to represent the infinity of the sea. As you listen to the silence of your own room, imagine those waves being drawn, one by one, a meditative labor of love that took months to complete. The colors on these ancient maps were made from the earth itself, crushed lapis lazuli for the blue of the deep, malachite for the green of the shallows, and ochre for the distant, mysterious lands. These colors were soft and muted, blending into one another like a dream. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the map is being slowly rolled up. The edges of the world are being tucked away for the night. The sea serpents are coiling back into their caves. The island whales are sinking into the warm, dark silt, and the dragons are closing their glowing eyes. The unknown is not something to be solved tonight. It is something to be surrendered to. You don't need a map for where you are going. In the world of sleep, there are no coastlines, there are no borders. You are sailing into the blank blue spaces of the map, where the water is calm and the stars are the only guide you need. The candle in the cartographer's room has burned low. The flame flickers once, twice, and then goes out, leaving only a thin ribbon of smoke and the scent of warm wax. The room is now bathed in the soft blue light of the moon. Outside, the real ocean continues its work, irregardless of how we choose to draw it. You are now in the terra incognita of your own rest. It is a beautiful territory. There are no monsters here, only the soft shadows of your imagination. There are no storms here, only the rhythmic breathing of a world at peace. The map is closed. The ink is dry. The journey through the myths is over. You are free to float in the vast, unmarked spaces of your dreams. Sleep among the wonders of the old world. Sleep where the dragons are nothing more than the whispers of the tide. The unknown is waiting, and it is as gentle as the deep. As you leave the parchment maps and mythical monsters of the past behind you, imagine yourself descending once more, slipping away from the world of sunlight, wind, and air. You are sinking through the twilight zone, where the blue of the water turns to a bruised purple, and finally you enter the midnight zone, the bathopelagic. We are now more than 3,000 feet below the surface. Here, the sun is a forgotten memory. The pressure is immense, yet you feel only a soft, grounding weightlessness. The temperature is a steady, chilled embrace.
In this absolute darkness, you might expect a void of nothingness. But as your eyes adjust to the liquid night, you realize you have not entered a world of shadow, but a galaxy of living light. This is the realm of bioluminescence, the ocean's silent underwater firework display. As you lie in your bed, imagine your room has become this dark, safe abyss. The darkness isn't empty, it is a velvet canvas, and upon this canvas, the inhabitants of the deep are painting with light. Bioluminescence is one of nature's most beautiful miracles. It is cold light, light produced not by heat or fire, but by chemistry. Within the bodies of these creatures, two substances, luciferin and luciferase, combine to create a glow that is usually a haunting electric blue or a soft emerald green. The history of this glowing world was long a mystery to the people of the surface. Ancient sailors spoke of milky seas, where the ocean for miles around would glow with a steady, ghostly white light, as if they were sailing over a submerged moon. Aristotle and Pliny the Elder wrote of shining wood and glowing jellyfish, but it wasn't until we developed the technology to visit the deep that we realized nearly 90% of the creatures in the midnight zone create their own light. Visualize, if you will, the Atolla jellyfish. It looks like a crown made of scarlet glass. When it is disturbed, it doesn't swim away in a panic. Instead, it creates a burglar alarm of light. It sends a ripple of neon blue flashes circling around its bell, like the spinning light of a silent police car. The flashes are rhythmic. Blink, blink, blink. It is a mesmerizing circular dance that draws your gaze and holds it, pulling you deeper into a trance of light and water. High above, in our world, we look up at the stars to feel small. But here, the stars are all around you. This is the galaxy beneath. Think of the comb jellies, the cenophores. They do not sting, they simply drift. They have tiny hair-like cilia that they use to move through the water, and as these cilia beat in a rhythmic pulse, they act like prisms. They break the faint bioluminescent light into a shimmering rainbow that travels up and down their bodies. Imagine a neon rainbow pulsing slowly in the dark, moving at the pace of a slow, deep breath. As you breathe in, imagine that rainbow of light expanding. As you breathe out, imagine it softly dimming. There is no noise here, no wind, no voices, no clatter of the modern world. Every flash of light is a silent word in a language of color. Some creatures use their light as a lonely lantern. Consider the anglerfish, a permanent resident of this dark sanctuary. On her head, she carries a long, flexible spine that ends in a glowing orb. This orb is filled with billions of glowing bacteria that live in harmony with her. She doesn't hunt, she simply waits. She hangs suspended in the dark, her little lantern swaying gently in the current, a beacon of patience in the void. There is a lesson here in the deep. You do not always need to chase what you need. Sometimes you only need to be still, keep your light burning, and let the world come to you. Then there is the marine snow. As you drift through this underwater galaxy, you see thousands of tiny glowing white flakes falling slowly from the world above. This is organic matter, the remnants of the upper ocean drifting down like a never-ending blizzard in slow motion. Each flake of marine snow is a tiny spark. In the deep, it looks as though the stars themselves are falling, settling softly on the seafloor to feed the silent cities we visited before. Imagine yourself lying in a field of this glowing snow. It is soft, weightless, and infinitely peaceful. The flakes drift past your closed eyes, each one a tiny point of light that fades as it sinks deeper into the dark. The science of this light is a science of survival, but for us, it is a science of peace. Deep-sea dragonfish use red light, a color invisible to almost every other creature in the deep, to search for their path. They have their own secret night vision, a private channel of light that no one else can see. Think of your own mind tonight as having that same private channel. You are moving through the darkness of sleep, guided by a light that is yours alone. As we go even deeper, the lights become more sparse, more precious. We reach the abyssal plain, where the light displays are rare and spectacular. A single glowing squid might dart past, leaving a trail of shimmering ink that glows like a comet's tail. Or a siphonophore, a creature that is actually a colony of thousands of tiny individuals, might stretch out for 100 feet, looking like a glowing, translucent rope draped through the water. The deeper you go, the slower life moves. In the midnight zone, the heartbeats of the creatures are slow. Their movements are deliberate. They do not waste energy. They exist in a state of perpetual meditative conservation. Let your own energy follow that pattern. You have spent your day moving, thinking, and acting. Now it is time for the midnight zone of your mind. You are conserving your energy.
You are letting your heartbeat slow to a rhythmic, steady pulse. You are becoming a creature of the deep, where the only thing that matters is the current and the light.
The silent firework display is beginning to fade now. The jellyfish have drifted into the distance. The comb jellies have dimmed their rainbows. The marine snow is settling, covering the world in a blanket of quiet. The electric blues and emerald greens are softening into a deep, restful charcoal. You are in the heart of the abyss, but you are not cold. You are wrapped in the warmth of the Earth's internal heat, shielded by miles of protective water. The bioluminescent galaxy has shown you its beauty, and now it is inviting you to close your eyes. The last thing you see is a single tiny spark, a solitary lantern in the distance. It blinks once, twice, and then it is gone. The darkness that remains is not empty. It is full of the potential for dreams. It is a darkness that is thick, soft, and inviting. The galaxy beneath is at rest. The chemical lights have burned out, and the cold light has given way to the warmth of sleep. The ocean is a silent chamber, a cathedral of water and shadow. Sleep as the sparks of the deep fade away. Sleep as the bioluminescent stars tuck you into the velvety dark. The midnight zone is quiet. The firework display is over. The silence is absolute. Sleep. As the bioluminescent sparks of the deep abyss fade into the background of your mind, imagine yourself rising slowly, breaking the surface of the water once more. But you are not returning to the modern world of steel and steam. You are stepping back into the mid-1800s, the golden age of sail. The air is no longer still. It is alive with a constant, warm, and purposeful breeze. You are standing on the polished teak deck of a tea clipper, a vessel built for one thing only: to fly across the oceans on the wings of the wind. The sun is low on the horizon, casting a long golden path across the water. But the most important thing you feel is the wind. It isn't a gusty, unpredictable wind. It is the trade winds. These are the great steady breathings of the earth, moving from the tropics toward the equator with a reliability that shaped human history. For centuries, these winds were the engines of the world. They were called trade winds not just because of commerce, but from the Old English word tread, meaning a path or track. They are the paths of the sea, as predictable as the rising sun. As you lie in your bed, imagine your room is caught in this steady flow. The trade winds are a constant, gentle pressure, like a hand resting reassuringly on your shoulder. They don't howl, they hum. They don't push, they carry. The tea clippers, ships like the famous Cutty Sark or the Thermopylae, were the masterpieces of this era. Imagine the sight of one: 3 towering masts of Oregon pine, reaching over 200 feet into the sky, supporting a literal cloud of white canvas. When a clipper was under full sail, it looked like a great white bird skimming the surface of the blue. The hull was narrow and sharp, designed to clip the waves rather than ride over them. Think of the tea routes. Every year, these ships would gather in the ports of Foochow or Shanghai, their holds packed tight with thousands of chests of the finest tea. The air around the ship wouldn't just smell of salt. It would carry the dry, herbal, and slightly smoky fragrance of lapsang soch and green tea. This scent would seep through the wooden planks, creating a fragrant, warm sanctuary within the ship. As you breathe in,
Imagine that scent, a warm, earthy aroma that settles your nerves and clears your mind. The journey from China to London or New York was a voyage of 3 months and 15,000 miles, and for the sailors on board, life was defined by a beautiful, peaceful monotony. In the modern world, we are taught to fear boredom, but on a tea clipper in the middle of the trade winds, monotony was a form of meditation. Imagine the daily rhythm of the crew. There were no engines to maintain, no coal to shovel. The work was tactile and rhythmic. Every morning, the sailors would holystone the decks, scrubbing the wood with sandstone until it was white as a bone. Scrub, rinse, scrub, rinse. The sound of the water splashing across the deck and the rhythmic movement of the brushes became the soundtrack of the morning. Then there was the mending of the sails. A sailor might spend 6 hours sitting on a quiet corner of the deck, needle in hand, stitching a heavy piece of flax canvas. It was a silent task, done under the warm sun, with nothing but the sound of the bow cutting through the water. Hiss, splash, hiss, splash. The ship moved at 15 knots, a speed that felt like flying, yet because there was no land in sight for weeks, it felt as though the ship were standing still in a perfect blue eternity. This is the zen of the golden age of sail. To be at sea was to be disconnected from the anxieties of the land. There were no newspapers, no letters, no telegrams. A sailor's world was only what he could see from the crow's nest high above the deck.
He watched the flying fish leap from the crests of the waves, their silver wings catching the light. He watched the albatross, the great wanderer of the sea, following the ship for days without ever flapping its wings, simply gliding on the same trade winds that move the vessel. As you drift towards sleep, try to find that same blue eternity. Your day is done. The ports of your responsibilities are thousands of miles behind you. You are in the middle of the Atlantic, caught in the steady, unchanging flow of the easterlies. The trade winds are caused by the sun heating the air at the equator, causing it to rise and then sink again in a great cosmic loop called a Hadley cell. It is the Earth's way of breathing. The planet inhales at the equator and exhales toward the tropics. You are riding that exhale. It is a breath that has been blowing for millions of years, and it will be blowing long after we are gone. There is a profound safety in that kind of permanence. In the evening, as the stars began to appear, the sailors would gather on the forecastle to tell stories or play a concertina. The music was simple, a few wheezing notes that harmonized with the creaking of the masts. But mostly, there was silence. The night watch was a time of absolute stillness. A sailor would stand at the bow, looking out into the dark, watching the phosphorescence in the wake. He wasn't looking for danger. He was simply keeping the watch, a silent witness to the night. Imagine yourself on that night watch now. You are leaning against the sturdy wooden rail. The ship is leaning slightly to one side, held steady by the constant pressure of the wind. The sails above you are full and silent, looking like ghosts against the dark sky. The rigging, miles of hemp rope, vibrates with a low musical note, a wind harp played by the trade winds. The ship is a cradle. The ocean is the hand that rocks it, and the wind is the lullaby. The Golden Age eventually came to an end with the arrival of steamships and the opening of the Suez Canal. The great clippers were replaced by iron ships that didn't care about the wind. But the trade winds didn't stop blowing. They are still out there, moving the water, shaping the clouds, and offering their steady path to anyone who knows how to find them. You have found them tonight.
You have hitched your spirit to the sails of a tea-clipper. The cargo of your mind, all those heavy chests of thoughts and worries, is tucked away safely in the hold. The herbal scent of relaxation is filling your senses. The ship is moving perfectly. The helmsman has the wheel, his eyes on the stars. The wind is steady. The path is clear. You can let go of the rigging. You can climb down into the warm wooden cabin where your hammock is waiting. As you settle into your blankets, feel the ship's hull protecting you. The water is rushing past, just a few inches from your head, but you are dry, warm, and safe. The rhythm of the trade winds is the rhythm of your own heart. Slow, steady, constant. The horizon is a soft, dark line where the blue of the sea meets the black of the sky. There is nothing to do but exist in the flow. Sleep, as the clippers slept under the tropical moon. Sleep, as the trade winds carry you across the silver map of your dreams. The voyage is long, the wind is fair, and the sea is kind. Sleep. As you leave the warm, sun-drenched decks of the tea-clippers and the steady hum of the trade winds, imagine yourself standing alone on a silent, rocky outcrop overlooking the North Atlantic. The sun has long since vanished, and the world is bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. High above, a silver orb hangs in the velvet darkness, the moon. It is a pearly, luminous presence, and tonight we're going to explore the ancient, invisible tether that connects that distant world to the waters at your feet. For as long as humans have looked at the sky, we have known that the moon and the ocean are partners in a grand celestial dance. It is a relationship that never rests, a rhythmic tug-of-war that has governed the pulse of our planet for billions of years. As you settle deeper into your blankets, imagine your own breath is part of this global rhythm, in and out, rising and falling. You are not just a spectator, you are part of the Earth's great inhale. In the ancient world, before we had the mathematics of gravity, the tides were a source of profound spiritual wonder. To the early Romans and Greeks, the tides were a mystery. In the calm, nearly tideless Mediterranean, the movement of the sea was subtle. But when their explorers pushed past the Pillars of Hercules and into the vast Atlantic, they were stunned. They saw the ocean retreat for miles, leaving ships stranded on the mud, only to return hours later with a roar. They called the ocean the Great Abyss, believing it was a living creature that took long, slow breaths. Imagine the perspective of a philosopher in Alexandria 2,000 years ago, standing on the shore of the Red Sea. He would have noticed that whenever the moon was at its most full and brightest, the tides were at their most powerful. He didn't know why, but he could feel the connection. He saw the moon as a celestial conductor, waving an invisible baton that the entire ocean was forced to follow.
It wasn't until the 17th century that we began to understand the science of this dance. Johannes Kepler, the great astronomer, was one of the first to suggest that the moon exerted a magnetic-like pull on the water. Later, Sir Isaac Newton gave us the language of gravity. He explained that the moon doesn't just shine on the Earth, it reaches out with invisible fingers, pulling the ocean toward it. As you lie in the stillness of the night, visualize this pull. Because the Earth is mostly covered in water, the moon's gravity causes the oceans to bulge outward. There is a bulge of water facing the moon and another bulge on the opposite side of the Earth. As our planet rotates on its axis, we pass through these bulges. This is what we call high tide. It is a slow, majestic swelling of the deep, a liquid mountain moving silently across the globe. Think of the spring tides.
not named for the season, but from the old German word springen, meaning to leap up. This happens during the new moon and the full moon, when the sun, earth, and moon all line up in a perfect straight line. Their combined gravity creates a massive, surging energy. This is the ocean at its most expressive. Then there are the neap tides, when the moon and sun are at right angles, pulling in different directions. During these times, the ocean is calm and hesitant, as if it cannot decide which way to flow. There is a profound comfort in the reliability of this cycle. The moon doesn't need to be told when to pull. The ocean doesn't need to be told when to rise. It is the most dependable clock in the universe. Even in the middle of a storm, even in the middle of a war, even in the middle of your busiest day, the tides have continued their work. They are the heartbeat of the world. Imagine the sound of a rising tide in a quiet bay in Maine. It isn't a crash, it is a persistent, musical hiss. The water creeps up over the barnacle-covered rocks, filling the tiny crevices, lifting the seaweed so it can dance in the current once more. It is a reclamation. The ocean is coming back for what belongs to it. As you listen to the imaginary sound of that water, let your mind be reclaimed by the tide of sleep. Your thoughts are like the tide pools. The water is coming in to smooth them over, to make everything deep and still and blue. The lunar dance isn't just about water, it's about life. For millions of years, the tides have dictated the biological clocks of the 7 seas. Think of the sea turtles on the coast of Florida, waiting for the high tide of the full moon to climb onto the sand and lay their eggs. Think of the coral reefs in the Great Barrier Reef, which wait for a specific lunar phase to release their larvae in a spectacular underwater snowstorm of life. The moon is the keeper of the Earth's schedule. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, imagine yourself floating on a calm, silver sea. The water is perfectly still, reflecting the moon like a giant mirror. You are caught in the slack water, that brief, magical moment between the high tide and the low tide when the ocean stands perfectly still. There is no current. There is no movement. There is only the vast, silent reflection of the heavens. In this moment of slack water, the world feels weightless. You are held by the gravity of the earth, but you are also being tugged, ever so gently, by the gravity of the moon. You are suspended between the two worlds, a traveler in a silver dreamscape. Sailors used to call the moonlight on the water a silver path. They believed that if they followed that path, they would reach a place of eternal peace. Tonight, that path is leading you toward rest. The silver light is washing over your eyes, cooling your brow, and softening the edges of your room.
The relationship between the moon and the sea is a reminder that we are all connected to the cosmos. We aren't just living on a rock in space. We are living on a living, breathing planet that reacts to the stars. The ocean is the Earth's way of reaching back to the sky. The moon is beginning to set now, sinking toward the horizon. As it moves, the tide begins to recede. The water pulls back from the shore with a long, slow sigh. It is leaving the land to rest for a while, retreating into the deep, dark safety of the abyss. Let your own tide recede now. Pull back from the world of noise. Pull back from the shore of your responsibilities. Let the deep water carry you away. The moon will be there tomorrow, and the tides will return. But for now, the ocean is quiet. The dance is slowing down. The music of the spheres is fading into a single, low-frequency hum. The silver path is narrowing, turning into a tiny point of light on the horizon. The seven seas are at rest. The lunar sentinel has finished its work for the night. The earth is tucked into its blanket of shadow. Sleep to the rhythm of the celestial pull. Sleep as the moon watches over the silent swells. You are safe in the arms of the gravity that moves the world. Sleep. We have traveled from the sun-drenched shorelines of the ancient world to the star-guided paths of the Pacific. We have felt the rhythmic creak of wooden ships and heard the haunting lullabies of the great whales. But now it is time for our final descent. We are leaving the world of light, the world of sound, and even the world of time. We are descending into the Hadal zone, the deepest trenches of the ocean, the abyss. As you lie in your bed, imagine your room is no longer a physical space of walls and windows. It has become a sanctuary of velvet darkness. You are drifting downward, but there is no fear in this descent. You are like a single grain of sand, falling through miles of cool, supportive water. Here, the pressure of the ocean is not a heavy burden. It is a warm, all-encompassing embrace. It is a weight that holds you steady, a pressure that tells every muscle in your body that it is okay to stop resisting. You are perfectly supported. You are perfectly safe. In the history of human exploration, the abyss was the final frontier. In January of 1960, two men, Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh, boarded a strange spherical craft called the Trieste. They began a journey 7 miles down into the Challenger Deep, the deepest point in the world. As they descended, the water turned from blue to black, and the temperature dropped to a steady, chilled stillness. Inside their steel sphere, they heard the faint, metallic tink-tink of the water pressing against the hull. But once they reached the bottom, there was only silence. Imagine that silence now. It is a silence so profound it feels like a physical substance. It isn't just the absence of noise, it is the presence of peace. In the abyss, there are no storms. The most violent hurricanes on the surface cannot send even a single ripple down here. The world could be changing, the winds could be howling, and the tides could be surging far above. But here, everything remains exactly as it has been for millions of years. This is the place where time stands still. The seafloor of the abyss is covered in a soft, thick layer of abyssal ooze, a fine, silty sediment that has been settling flake by flake for eons. Imagine your worries are like that sediment. One by one, they are drifting down through the water, settling on the silent floor and disappearing into the soft, gray dust. They are becoming part of the Earth's ancient history. They no longer belong to the world of the living. They belong to the world of the deep. In this hadopelagic zone, named after Hades, the unseen, there is no seasons, there is no morning, and there is no evening. There is only the eternal now. As you breathe, try to inhabit this timelessness. You don't need to think about what happened today. You don't need to plan for what happens tomorrow. In the abyss, there is only the rhythmic, slow expansion of your lungs and the steady, quiet beat of your heart. Think of the creatures that live here, the translucent snailfish and the tiny glowing amphipods.
They move with an incredible, slow-motion grace. They don't fight the water. They are part of it. Their bodies are made mostly of water, so they feel no pressure at all. They are as light as a dream, floating in a world of absolute shadow. Visualize the darkness around you. It isn't a scary darkness. It is a rich, warm, and protective dark. It is the color of the universe before the first star was born. It is the darkness of the womb, the darkness of the deep forest, the darkness of a dreamless sleep.
You are now at the very bottom of the world. The Trieste has long since returned to the surface, but you are staying here. You are the explorer who decided to stay in the silence. Your bed is your vessel, and it is anchored in the soft silt of the Challenger Deep. Feel your toes. Let them sink into the weightless dark. Feel your legs. They are becoming as heavy and as still as the stone walls of the trench. Feel your hands. They are resting on the cool velvet sheets of the abyss. Feel your mind. It is a single glowing spark that is slowly, slowly dimming. The water here is still. The silence is absolute. There are no more facts to learn, no more stories to hear. The history of the ocean has led you to this moment of total surrender. You are part of the deep blue now. You are part of the salt, the silt, and the silence. The 7 miles of water above you are a shield. They protect you from the noise of the world. They protect you from the light of the sun. They protect you from the passage of time. You are in the heart of the earth, and the earth is whispering to you, rest, be still, let go. The abyss is the end of the journey. There is nowhere left to descend. You have reached the foundation of the world. Here, the weight of the water is a lullaby. The darkness is a blanket. The silence is a song. In a moment, my voice will fade away, leaving you in the perfect, weightless silence of the deep. You won't miss the voice, because you will be listening to the heartbeat of the abyss. It is a slow, rhythmic pulse that says, sleep, sleep, sleep. The bioluminescence has gone out. The whales have finished their songs. The trade winds have stopped blowing. The moon has set. There is only you, the water, and the deep, dark peace of the abyss. You are drifting, drifting into the soft, gray silt of dreams. The water is warm. The pressure is perfect. The silence is complete. Sleep now in the weightless silence. Sleep now where time stands still. Sleep now in the heart of the deep blue. Good night, Voyager. The abyss is holding you. Sleep, sleep, sleep.